Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Vibrant Living Expo. My name is Dr. Karen Dina, and it is my pleasure to announce Jan Allegretti. Jan is the author of 2 books, The Complete Holistic Dog Book, Home Health Care for Our Canine Companions, which she co-authored with Katie Summers, and Listen to Silence, Listen to the Silence, Lessons from the Trees and Other Masters. Jen is a consultant in holistic health care for animals and has been a passionate advocate for animal rights and welfare for more than 20 years. She has written numerous articles on the subject, including the column Beyond Body, Mind, and Spirit for the In Defense of Animals e-newsletter. And she's the co-founder of the Mendocino County Animal Rights Advocacy Organization CARE, Compassion for Animals, Respect, and for Earth. It's my pleasure to announce Jan.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you. Sounds better. Thank you all for coming. Oh, I can hear it now too. No, it's just great to be here at the Expo. So many people coming together to think about making big and small changes in our everyday habits to be healthier and in ways that are good for us and good for the planet and good for the animals. You know, the more we take the animal products out of our diet for ourselves, the more we benefit ourselves and everything in so many ways. So it's interesting to find that I hear over and over again people making good changes like that for themselves, doing more and more holistic care in terms of their health needs, homeopathy, herbs, nutritional supplements, that kind of thing. But often we don't automatically think about extending those same ideas to the animals in our family. But when you really think about it, it's not too surprising that they can reap all the same benefits that we do from those kinds of changes and those kinds of considerations. So today we can take some time out to explore our animals' diets as well as our own. Yesterday we spent an hour talking about feeding a fresh food diet as opposed to a packaged diet. And how many people are here now who were here yesterday for that talk as well? Okay, so just a few. I'd like to just touch really briefly on the principles that we talked about. I would be willing to pretty much bet the ranch that if you're here today, you don't eat most of your meals out of a box or a package. You probably eat a lot of fresh foods yourself on a day-to-day basis. We've been indoctrinated to think that a good packaged food that's nutritionally balanced for animals is the best thing to feed our animals. That's how I was raised. That's what I was taught for many, many years. But the truth is that animals benefit from fresh, healthy, living foods just like we do. The fresher, the better. The more organically grown, the better. And the more variety, the better. They need fresh foods and a variety of them from one day to the next, just like we do. So we're, in general, incorporating a lot of the same principles of diet and nutrition and good health with our animals that we do for ourselves. And this is one aspect of it. Many people are surprised to discover that dogs and cats can also be vegetarian or vegan, just like we can. We think of them as being carnivores. I know, unfortunately, there are people who follow a strict vegetarian or vegan diet themselves because they just don't want to use animal products at all for a variety of reasons. And they don't bring dogs or cats into their homes simply because they don't want to bring meat products into their homes. And the truth is that not only do dogs and cats not need to have meat in their diets, they can actually thrive without it. And in fact, some health problems actually improve when animal products are eliminated. So we're going to talk about that some. But I thought I'd start out by just giving you some examples of some of the animals from my own family who have tried going veg and done pretty well. This is Patches. She was the first animal family member who I put onto a vegetarian diet. And I did it for her pretty much out of desperation. She was a princess, as you can see probably. She was extraordinarily sensitive. She had terrible allergies. She was very nervous. She reacted to her. She had allergies to the foods that she was eating. Unfortunately, this was probably close to 30 years ago, and I really didn't know very much at all about nutrition in general at the time. And I was feeding her pretty poor quality packaged food. She got to where every time she would take a bite, she would itch and run around the room just frantic because she was so tormented by the itching. Finally, she would sit at her food bowl and look at it and cry because she wanted to eat, but she knew it would make her uncomfortable. So I went through the rounds. I tried better quality foods and different kinds of packaged foods. Nothing really helped. She also had a lot of emotional sensitivities. She was frightened easily. She was just overreact to different stimuli. Finally, I tried her on a vegetarian diet. It's hard to believe, but all the problems went away. The allergies went away. She was calmer. She was more relaxed. The sensitivities went away. She was a completely new cat, so much more peaceful, so much happier. She really thrived. Now, she wasn't vegan at the time. She was vegetarian. She had eggs and dairy products, but she had no meat at all, and it really, really made a huge difference for her. Maisie was her sister, who was rough and tough and little power kitty. Nothing would stop her. Nothing bothered her. She probably would have thrived on a lot of things that would set other people back, but because her sister was on a vegetarian diet, Maisie went on one too. And she actually did really well. Her coat came in glossier and thicker, and she did very, very well too. Tashina was a rescue black Great Dane. And she had emotional sensitivities too. When she came to me, she was terrified of any loud noises. She would go into almost a mild seizure when the lights would flicker. Any kind of light change. I went camping one night, and somebody pulled into a neighboring campsite, and they were moving a flashlight around, and she went into almost a seizure. It just had a really negative response to her. And it was really tormenting for her, obviously. Took her off of all animal products, and the problem didn't go away, but it was dramatically, dramatically reduced. Much, much better. You'll see I'm a fan of Great Danes. They're all rescues, but they're all, I love them big and sweet and gentle. This is Savannah. She came to me over here at about 5 years old. We met at the Pound over in Ukiah. She was in terrible shape. She'd been dumped in town and sort of left to wander the streets for a couple weeks, and when nobody picked her up, the person who had left her there finally brought her to the Pound, and she was in really terrible shape. I was a little reluctant to adopt a 5-year-old Dane because they tend to have such a short lifespan. And I finally decided that if I could get one really good year, she was a wonderful individual. I wanted to have her with me. She went on to a vegetarian diet, thrived, did beautifully, came into her own. She was with me until 2 weeks past her 13th birthday. Almost twice the normal lifespan of a Great Dane.
What is the vegetarian diet?
I'm going to tell you all about that. Lots of information about that. First, I want you to know you really want to try it. And this, of course, is Tess, who didn't argue at all about the vegetarian diet. But she was part of the family, so we let her show up here, too. Tila is my current love. She came to me 2 years ago. This is the day I met her. She had been turned into a shelter. She's now 125 pounds. At this point, she was somewhere under 106. She had a terrible respiratory infection. I don't know how well you can see it in this light, but you can see her spine. You can see her hip bones. She had just had puppies. Ear infections. She was terrible shape. Here you can see her coat a little bit. I don't know if you can tell. It's a little bit mottled, kind of brownish. Somebody asked me if she was a brindle at one point. I got her home and gave her first meal of rice and lentils and broccoli. She loved it. She just scarfed it down. And here she was about 7 months later. Again, it's a little hard to see, but you can see her coat's shiny. She's well muscled. She's got good weight on her. And there you can really see the shiny coat. Was there anybody here who met her? She was outside last night. Do you want to say just a couple minutes about how she looked?
She was fabulous. She's very soft and very, the coat was very glistening and very gentle and very kind, and you could just pet her all you wanted to, and she was fabulous.
Yeah, she's very calm, very easygoing, very glossy, healthy, vibrant. ton of energy, plenty of energy, loves to play. But so she's really thrived on the vegetarian diet. So how can this be? How can they really be? How can it be? They're wolves. The cats are descended from lions. These are carnivores, right? Does it really make sense to try to put them on a vegetarian diet? It can be a hard leap of faith. You really want to do what's best for them, and I know that it can be hard to just feel like you're taking a risk with their health. So we're used to thinking of wolves as being predators and really needing the meat in their diet. But how much are our dogs that we have in our homes today really, really like wolves? We've changed them an awful lot. We've changed them through the tremendous amount of breeding we've done to domesticating them. We've changed them physically, emotionally. You know, this is not a wolf anymore. You know, they're different on so many levels that it's just we need to separate ourselves from the notion that we have a wild animal in our home. This is Savannah in one of her. She loved her big bunny. My wild wolf, you know. The same is true with the lions, you know, with the cats. They are descended from lions, the great predators. But you know what? They're not the same anymore. They're different. You know, we need to honor that heritage, but also be open to the idea that they really are different. Things have changed. The other side of that is that the food that we're feeding them is not what a wild animal would eat either. You know, it's not. We think that, well, we have to feed them meat and chicken and what do we feed them now? Lamb or whatever it is, because they're predators. They're supposed to eat that. This cow is nothing like, or not, is very, very dissimilar from the wild game that a wolf would take down. They're loaded, unless you're feeding organic, they're loaded with hormones and antibiotics. They're loaded with all the stress in their system from a life that's very, very difficult and traumatic. And they've just been changed genetically. It's not the same animal. We're not feeding wild game to our animals anymore. The chickens, it's the same thing. Kept in cages for the most part, living a really tough life. It's not like a wild prey animal. And the truth is that even the big game, the predators do eat some grasses and berries and things that they find in the wild. And they do, one of the first things they eat when they do kill a wild animal is eat the stomach contents, which is generally a vegetarian meal. So what I have found is that when you switch to a meatless diet, very often I do see lots of benefits. I told you about Maisie, the really vibrant, strong, healthy cat who didn't really have a problem in the world, except that when she went onto a vegetarian diet, she got even more vibrant and more healthy. A lot of times you'll see a glossier coat, cleaner teeth, nice, fresh, sparkling white teeth. You don't have the plaque problems. They have a lot of energy, and yet they're also more peaceful. I am of the opinion that getting the meat out of the diet helps to calm things down. It changes the energy. It sort of takes a step away from the whole predator mentality and that sort of thing. It's just like people. That's right. That's right. And in fact, it really can overcome health problems. I teach workshops in holistic health care for animals. I talk a lot about nutrition, and I also do a lot of work with homeopathy and herbs and so on. So people ask questions in workshops, and they talk to me in private consultations about a lot of different kinds of health problems. And over and over again, I see health problems go away. Number one, from getting off of packaged food and switching to a fresh food diet, which is so critical. And number two, when there are still problems to getting them off of the meat. There are a lot of problems that seem particularly responsive to this, especially if they've been stubborn to other kinds of treatments. Allergies is one of those. Seizure disorders is another one of those. I told you about Tashina, and I've seen other clients who have dealt with seizure disorders that have been dramatically improved by getting the meat out. Digestive problems can calm the digestive system quite a bit. Obesity, it's a really great way to feed a really good, healthy, substantial meal loaded with nutrition without a lot of calories. And it really can help to calm a lot of dogs and cats. You know for sure that you're eliminating a lot of toxins from the meals, potentially, when you're getting the meat out, too. For the same reasons that you've at least exploring getting the meat out of your own diet. So what should you feed was the question of the day. The single most important ingredient in any diet, I think, assuming that you're not feeding Twinkies and Coca-Cola, is variety. When you feed a variety of ingredients, your animal has an opportunity to draw nutrients from a variety of different foods. I don't know what the right recipe is for your dog. I don't know what the right formula is for your dog. Do you know what? Nobody does, or your cat, because each individual is different. And each individual is different from one day to the next or 1 week to the next, depending on what's going on in your life, stress levels, health issues, immune response, aging, all kinds of things. So the nutritional needs change all the time. That's why it's really important to feed a variety of foods. When you do, a lot of people are a little fearful of taking this leap to feed home-prepared meals. But feeding a variety of foods is your best insurance, because if you don't get the right formula today, you're going to give them something different tomorrow or in a day or two, and they can pick up that nutrient from that other food source. So variety is really important. Beyond that, there are 4 basic components that you want to include in the meal. You need a protein source, or a food type that's relatively high in protein. You need a carbohydrate. You need vegetables and fruits. And you need some kinds of fatty acids. And you can get those components from the same kinds of foods that you get from in your own diet. If you do feed meat, which you'll hopefully be doing less and less of after today, you do need to add a calcium supplement. If you don't feed meat, you do not need to supplement with calcium, because number one, they're going to be getting plenty of calcium from the foods that you're feeding. The other reason is that what we're concerned about with calcium intake is not just the amount of calcium, but also the balance between calcium and phosphorus. Meat introduces a lot of phosphorus into their system, so that's why you need more calcium to balance that. If you're not feeding meat, you don't have to worry about that so much, so you don't need the calcium supplementation. You want to add some, it's a good idea to add some what I call nutrition boosters, things that just add a little extra punch of one nutrient to another. And this is one of those places where you can use variety to adapt to whatever's going on in your animal's life, to adjust for stress levels or health issues or that kind of thing. Probiotics are a good idea to introduce from time to time, if not all the time. Wheat germ is a good source of a lot of some good fatty acids and vitamin E and enzymes. Feed raw, of course, spirulina, or blue-green algae, nutritional yeast, garlic. Nutritional yeast and garlic are really good to have around during flea and tick season, because they really do help to repel those. But I can tell you that if you're feeding a fresh food diet or feeding your animals like this, you will have far, far, far less trouble with things like fleas, because the animals are so healthy and vibrant, they just seem to repel them pretty well. You do want to, it's a good idea to add a vitamin mineral supplement. If you're feeding organic, it's less important. If you're feeding vegetarian, it's not critical. If you're feeding a vegan diet, it's essential. It's absolutely necessary to supplement if you're feeding a vegan diet to dogs and cats. There are a couple of amino acids and some nutrients that they're going to need. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But there are some nutrients that they are going to miss. So using spirulina is a good way to supplement for those. But just to be on the safe side, it's good to add it, especially for cats. It's critical for cats. And of course, you want to feed organic food as much as possible. How much of all these things? Generally, again, because every animal is different, I can't give you an exact proportion or an exact ratio. You need to start from kind of a middle of the road point and then watch your animal, and they'll tell you if they need more or less. 30 to 60% protein source is a good idea. About 30 to 60% carbohydrate source is a good idea. At least 10 to 30% vegetables. The more the better. The animals that I have fed love spinach and broccoli. I actually had a Doberman in my life once in a while that used to steal carrots anytime she'd get a chance. And she'd munch on the broccoli stalks, the part that you might not use. That was a big treat for her. But lots of vegetables. Don't forget fruits, too. How come I don't have fruits up there? You need to get fruits up on the chart. For the same reasons you eat them, the animals do well on them too. Again, calcium, but you don't need that if you're not going to be feeding meat. About a teaspoon to a tablespoon per day for your fats, depending on the size of the animal. The nutrition boosters, it's all over the chart depending on which one you're using. A good rule of thumb, though, is to feed an amount that's proportional to the weight of the animal. And think about what a human adult might eat, and then adjust it by the weight of the animal. So if you have a 60-pound dog, maybe you'll feed it half of a human dose, or something like that, a third to a half a human dose, something like that. So adjust by weight. Vitamin mineral supplement. It's a good idea to get use the human grade. Vitamins are fine. Feed them every other day, particularly if they're from a whole food source. And again, it's important that you supplement for the vegan diet for dogs and cats. And I will give you a little bit more about that too.
Could you give some examples of protein?
Yes. Good question. Good question. Tofu, tempeh, really easy to digest. They generally love them. And I have to say with all this, I will admit dogs are easier than cats. Some cats are a breeze to make this conversion with, especially if you use some dairy products or eggs at the beginning. Some of them are really finicky, but I have some tricks for them, so we'll come back to that. But in general, I have found very, very few dogs that have any problem making the switch at all. They seem to like it really well. Lentils are great. They cook fast, and they get nice and soft, so they're easy to digest. Beans are great. Some are easier than others, and we're going to talk about that some more. But good source of protein. Split peas are great. They're easy. They cook down to be really soft and digestible. Nut butters. A lot of the same protein sources you use. Sprouted legumes are good. Things like that. When you're, in general, when you think of the amount of meat you might need to put into a diet as opposed to, if you're as a protein source, as opposed to a carbohydrate source, because most plant protein sources also have a lot of carbohydrates in them, you might feed a larger proportion of that. But the key is to watch your animal, and they'll tell you how they're doing, and you can adjust it and see what works well. Do add a vitamin B12 supplement. They can get that from the spirulina or a good multivitamin source. Taurine and carnitine are two of the amino acids that are really important. Cats can become depleted in this much more quickly than dogs, so that's why it's so essential to supplement the cats with that. There's a wonderful, I think we'll come back to this a little later, but there's a really, really good vitamin supplement that you can get that's made specifically for vegan dogs and cats. It's called Veggie Cat or Veggie Pet, V-E-G-E, cat or dog, Veggie Cat or Veggie Dog. It's made by a company called Harbingers of a New Age, Harbingers of a New Age, and you can find it online at VeggiePet, VEGEPET.com. And that covers all of it vegan sources, and it covers all the nutrients you need, all the supplements you need. And again, remember variety. It's easy to kind of fall into a routine of you're going to have a pot of lentils and rice and broccoli and feed that day after day after day after day, but you still need variety. You need to change it up. Yeah?
I've heard that feeding broccoli, because I was doing that over and over. I've been cooking for my dog for 9.5 years, and that it actually lowers the thyroid. So that was kind of interesting.
I've never heard that. The question was that she's heard that feeding a lot of broccoli can lower thyroid function.
You don't mix it up, so then I would just exchange kale, and I do all the different veggies.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I've heard over and over, because I got used to, when I got lazy and went on trips, I'd make like 2 weeks and put the bags in the freezer for the babysitter.
Yeah.
And I would just do the frozen broccoli and Whole Foods when I was lazy. And so I don't know, that's just something I think.
Yeah, I think anytime you feed one food for a long period of time, you run into potential problems, and it may be a very individual thing. The vast majority of animals might have no problem. She was questioning whether she'd heard that feeding broccoli for a long period of time could impact thyroid function. But I think that anytime you feed one food, it also sets you up for an allergic response too. So variety is just important. No matter how, it's like you can overdose on water if you try, but variety is important. It's always a good idea. Yeah.
Are you talking about cooking everything?
Not necessarily. We're going to talk about that too in a minute. Lots of, let's see. What about raw foods? We'll come back to that. Lots and lots of things can be fed raw. The greens are great. I got Tila now is at the point where I don't even chop her spinach anymore. I just take a nice handful and I mix it all in. She loves it. It's great. Yeah.
When I make a green smoothie, I always pour some.
Sure. They love green smoothies. They love green smoothies. Yeah.
It's so easy. The
Yeah.
pulp. I always give my pulp from my juicer.
Uh-huh.
The green pulp.
Sure. That's great.
Really awesome.
It's great.
They love it.
They do. They do. They're talking about feeding green smoothies and the pulp from the juicer. They do. They love this stuff. It's like they know they need it. They know it's good for them. Yeah.
But when we're on the couch drinking our green smoothies, my little dog's 5 pounds, so he can actually stick his head into opening the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said they'll tell you what they want.
Absolutely.
He sticks his head in there if he wants that green smoothie. He'll drink it right out of the jar.
Absolutely. They know what's good for them. They know. They're actually great herbalists. They'll go out and graze and find the medicines they need. And if that medicine is in your juicer, they'll let you know that too. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, a lot of cats go out and graze. In fact, they sell little kits you can buy to grow grasses for your cats in particular. So, cats tend to love yellow things. They love yellow things. They like, I've known a lot of cats that go crazy for corn and sweet potatoes, yellow and orange things. I've heard that a lot of cats like melon. I haven't known any personally, but a lot of them I hear do. So that's, as far as the fruits go, try it. But, just try it. Whatever you're eating, try it. See if they like it.
But no avocado. It's poisonous.
There's been a lot of talk going on about that. I have seen animals eat avocado for many, many, many years. Yeah, there's a whole line of pet food called Avoderm made from avocados. And it's used a lot for animals with allergic problems. So I think it's there are a lot of animals that have done very well on it. It's if you're concerned, then don't use it. But I would still keep the jury out on that one. I feed a lot of cruciferous vegetables. I like to feed some raw, some steamed, because there are some benefits that are more bioavailable when they're steamed. But mix it up, same thing. I use a lot of rolled grains, rolled oats, barley, quinoa, spelt, kamut. A lot of those. They're easy to digest, and it's something that you can easily feed raw. I know there's there's concern about animals being allergic to grains. Some are, but vast majority are not. So many of them do really, really well on them. It's an individual thing. And again, I think don't feed the same thing every day. If they're getting a corn day after day after day after day after day, yeah, they might develop an allergy to it. But if you mix it up and feed variety, then I don't think it's a lot less likely to be a problem. Just be alert and watch for signs.
When you feed a whole grain, do you soak it and sprout it and feed it to the animal?
I don't.
Do you just take it out of the bag?
Yeah, I actually eat it that way myself too. I like it, and yeah, and they do fine. Yeah. I just pour some soy milk over them, or you could use rice milk or whatever you're using, and that's it. That's it. They probably don't chew them a lot. They probably kind of, yeah. No, rice. Yeah. Some of the grains like rice. Actually, I overcook the rice a little bit because you do need to make some accommodation for the shorter digestive tract. So that's something that I do cook a little bit more. Nut butters are great. The old peanut butter thing, they love it, and it's so good for them. Fruits, sprouts. Your sprouts, sprouts are, again, remember, they do have a shorter digestive tract. So some of the sprouts that are a little bit more dense, you might want to puree those for them. But once you're, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, getting ahead of myself a little bit, you're going to find that over time, when you first start feeding this way, you're going to see a lot of these foods pass through the digestive system. You'll see it in the stool. But over time, they'll begin to, it's just because they don't have the enzymes and the bacteria flora to handle them. Over time, they'll develop those more and more. So you can start out by cooking things more than you might otherwise, pureeing them, add probiotics to the diet or enzymes until they adjust, and then you won't need to worry about that so much. But generally, most of the principles of raw food diet, whatever you're doing for your own diet, you can do a lot of the same things for them. Let's back up a little bit. What did we miss? Cats. Did we do that? Okay, did we talk about, we talked about protein sources. We did that.
What about fat sources?
Fat sources. Olive oil, canola oil, flaxseed oil, borage oil.
Coconut oil is all the rage, and just so everybody knows, I see it everywhere because I study this stuff. And there are actually all these new products coming out for dogs, coconut flakes, I mean, all the stuff that we eat.
Yeah.
And and it's ideal to give them, like, it helps their coats so much.
Yeah, yeah. Peanut oil. Yeah.
But it's the easiest to digest, coconut oil.
It is. It's great for them, yes.
You had in the chart earlier, though, that fats, you had about a teaspoon to a tablespoon.
Yeah, that's minimal.
Is that, that's on a daily basis?
Yeah.
So, you want to measure things like nut butters and grains and things like that?
I don't measure much. I don't measure my own food. I eyeball it, And you're going to develop that same sense. I mean, if you're measuring pretty religiously for yourself, then you might want to adapt that for your dogs or cats. But I don't believe it's necessary. I think you probably have the wisdom to be able to have a sense of what's a reasonable amount. And I think with these guidelines, it's kind of a starting place.
But in general, a low-fat diet is better for dogs and cats?
I think moderation is important. If you overload on fats, you can run into problems, obesity and loose stools, pancreatitis, things like that. But they need some. They have to have some. So that's one of those places where one of the things I love about feeding a fresh food diet. I'm sorry, the question was about how much of a fat source to feed. Too much, too little, that kind of thing. One of the beauties of feeding a fresh food diet is that you can modify it. You can start from a place that you think is a moderate amount within a reasonable range. And if you think you'd like to see the coat a little glossier, add a little bit more. If you think maybe she's putting on a little bit of weight, you can cut back. Stools are a little too loose or too firm, you can adjust it. So it's about honing your skills of observing and watching on a day-to-day basis to see what they need and how they're responding. Does that help?
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah.
So oil wouldn't bother them as much as it, say, would bother humans to digest.
Right. I think they can handle the higher fats in general. Again, they're all individuals. But I certainly feed my dogs far more oil than I would ever eat. Yeah. So. Yes?
Could you talk about alkalinity versus acidity in a cat's diet, and does that affect urinary tract?
I'm not sure that's, I don't have a lot of specific information on that. I think that it's one of those places where, as far as urinary tract health and crystallization goes, feeding fresh food is far, far better than any kibble you can feed. And there are modifications that you can make to the foods that you're feeding to adjust if you think you have a potential problem. In general, if you're feeding this way, you're not likely to have a problem unless your cat has a predisposition to it. But you can make the same kinds of adjustments that you would make to your own diet in terms of alkalinity and acidity. Certainly taking the meat out, taking out the shellfish, things like that is going to be of benefit to them. So I don't have a lot of specifics for you on that. Sorry. How often to feed? Oops, sorry. 2 to 3 times a day, I think, is good for an adult. I'm a fan of cookies and treats and snacks on a regular basis because they enjoy it, as long as it's not compromising their health. The question was how often to feed. Sorry. But generally basically 2 meals a day, or maybe a snack in the middle of the day, as long as they're not overweight, or if they are and they seem hungry. You know, if an animal is hungry, I think it's nice if they can have a meal. And if they're overweight, it's a small meal. You know, or it's a meal. Well, again, one of the nice things about feeding this way is that you can make an adjustment. You can feed them a diet with a lot more vegetables and maybe a lot less fat and fewer high calorie foods, and they can feel really satisfied and have a nice full belly and not gain weight. Cats are tricky. We talked about that somewhat. They do have to have that supplement that you're going to order from VeggiePet. I don't sell for them. I don't have any stock in the company, but it's a good product. Oh, there's all the information. I knew it was up there somewhere. VeggiePet.com. And they have Veggie Dog too, and it's a really good idea if you're feeding vegan. In fact, you do need to supplement if you're feeding vegan. I'm kind of made the decision that I'm going to begin to switch my dog over to vegan completely, but I have been feeding her a vegetarian diet, and really the only animal products she's been getting are an egg most mornings, and it's a cage-free egg. You know, one thing that I'd like to comment about cage-free, you probably all know that the cage-free thing is not really necessarily a cage-free chicken is not necessarily a happy chicken. A lot of times they just dismantle the cages and put 1,000 chickens in one tiny little barn and say this is a cage-free hen, which I guess technically it is, but it defeats the purpose that we're after in trying to wish for them to have a happier life. Certainly if you have a neighbor that has chickens happily roaming around in their backyard and you feel okay using the chickens, the eggs in that way, that's certainly better. One thing I've noticed that lots and lots of the cage-free eggs that you find in the store are also, they say they're from vegetarian hens. I don't know why apparently there's a group of people out there that like to think that their hens are going to be vegetarian. I don't know why. But I'd like to think that that the hens are out there running around in the grass eating bugs. You know, if they're vegetarian, they're not on a grassy slope somewhere. So anyway, if you're buying cage-free eggs at the store, and they're vegetarian, I don't think they're very happy chickens. I don't know.
Do you think the eggs raw?
I do, yeah.
And the milk products?
Pardon me?
And the milk products as well?
I don't feed very many milk products, but certainly you could, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, again, and that's the same place with the same thing, the same choices you might make for yourself are consideration. Would be fine. Soy milk, rice milk, almond milk, those things are good as well. Good alternatives. Oat milk, hemp milk. We have so many choices now. Cats are harder some cats, many cats, were a little bit harder to make the switch with. They're a little more reluctant. Some things that you can use to tempt them are to put a little bit of a meat-based food into the mix, or if they're really fussy, start out with a lot of whatever food they're used to that has meat in it that they like, and just a little bit of what you want to switch them to, and gradually give less and less of the meat food and more of the vegan food. And they'll become more acclimated to the taste of it over time that way. I actually got my horses to eat raw garlic over time, doing that with molasses and garlic. And they smell like they've been eating spaghetti all night long, but it's good to keep the ticks off. Nutritional yeast, a sprinkle of nutritional yeast on top of the food can coax the cats because it has that cheesy kind of flavor. Some cats love it. Same thing with spirulina for the seaweed fishy taste. Tomato sauce a lot of cats like, or the yellow foods that we talked about. Or just a little drizzle of oil on top can tempt them to try something too. Oops.
Do you ever do dulse? Like I do the dulse sprinkle.
Yeah, any kind of seaweed, dulse, you know, the same thinking is with the blue-green algae and that kind of thing. Did we talk about this already? No. For your protein sources, again, I'm sorry, we're so kind of disorganized here. We've been just getting to a lot of different things, and not necessarily in the planned order, but the smaller, quick cooking ones are just they're really handy. Lentils, mung beans, Azuki beans. The split peas are great. They have a nice protein content to them, and they just break down so nice. Especially, it's a good one. The split peas and lentils are good when you're introducing some of these foods because they are easier to digest, and they won't be as likely to pass through. And they don't take very much time to cook. Larger beans, a lot of people ask me, doesn't your dog have a lot of gas? And you know, she doesn't. She doesn't, far less than most other dogs. In fact, I was at a gathering a few weeks ago of Great Dane Rescue. There were 45 Great Danes all in one park. It was a really, really terrific day, but I forget how bad it can smell sometimes, you know, those other dogs. I don't want to say it, but my dog's excrement does not smell very bad. You know? She eats really clean food. But for the larger beans, like your garbanzos or black beans or the harder, firmer beans, soak them overnight. You probably know this. I do cook them. I tend to overcook them more than what I would cook if I was just eating them myself, so they are good and soft. You might want to, when you're cooking them, add a potato or some kombu. It helps with the digestion. It helps make them less gassy. And at the beginning, when your animals are still adjusting to the diet, you can puree them to help them be more digestible.
What's kombu?
Kombu is a seaweed. I think we did that. If you do feel reluctant to go completely homemade, to do all homemade diets, and you do want to have a packaged food around, I do keep a package around just because every once in a while, like on the road, if I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find the right kind of food that I want to feed my dog, I'll have that on hand. I've got one with me. I haven't opened it in Mendocino County. I probably don't need to. But every once in a while, you know, if you get home late at night and you don't have anything ready in the refrigerator and you're really strapped, it's good to have something available. And, or if you're feeling a little uneasy about going it on your own completely, just keep in mind that what's in a package is never going to be as good as what you make in your own kitchen because it's processed. It's been cooked like crazy to be able to sit in a package, and it's probably been sitting on the shelf for quite a while. You don't really know what quality of ingredients are. I have all kinds of nasty stories about what has been known to be in packaged foods. So with that qualifier, read the label. You know, really scrutinize it. If it doesn't sound like something you'd want to eat, don't feed it. There are some companies that do a good job that bring a much more careful sensibility to the food they prepare. PetGuard is one of those. They offer organic, vegetarian, and vegan foods for dogs and cats. Really nice company. They're really supportive of this whole idea. Wysong is another one. They make a vegan dog that they say is for cats or dogs. They say on the label it's not intended to be the sole source of food. It's not a completely balanced diet. Excuse me. But I don't think any single packaged food is. I mean, number one, they need a variety of foods anyway, so no single packaged food should be their entire diet anyway. But if you need something quick and easy, it's good quality. Many of their ingredients are organic. Natural Life is another brand that's available. These are all companies that make vegetarian or vegan foods. That's why they're on this list. V-Dog is a really nice quality. I think it's made in Great Britain, which means it's shipped a long way. We have all kinds of other problems there, but those are some of the problems with packaged foods. That's what we deal with. Evolution, Natural Balance, Avoderm. That's an avocado-based one. So if you need a packaged foods, those are some to look for. And it really isn't hard, though, to cook fresh food. It's not as hard as you think it was. I know you're busy. I know you barely have time to prepare meals for yourself, but it doesn't really have to be very difficult, not nearly as much as what you might think. And there are some tricks that you can use. And the first one is to just adapt your own diet. You know, you don't need a separate shopping list. You don't need a separate day of cooking for the animals. Buy and cook the same foods that you prepare for yourselves. Excuse me. And just share your own meals. You know, the quickest, easiest way is to just, whatever you're eating, make some for your friend, too. Of course, you can prepare small portions, like you were saying you were making for 2 weeks of worth of food when you go away on vacation. Just make small batches and put them in the freezer. Like maybe put together your lentils and rice and put them in the freezer in 2 or 3 serving pouches, and then add your fresh vegetables when you thaw them out. Fast food meals, couple quick and dirty meals that you can make in a hurry. Peanut butter sandwich, good whole. Now these are primarily. The peanut butter sandwich is probably more suited to most dogs. Good whole grain bread and peanut butter, and broken up and tossed with some soy yogurt and an apple. It's really quick and easy. Or just pack the peanut butter sandwich when you go out camping for the weekend or something. Most animals I find don't have a problem with gluten. Yeah. Eggs and toast, get some eggs and again some good whole grain bread and maybe a little soy milk and good to go. California cuisine, that's my version of tofu and sprouts or spirulina and the juice and some rolled oats, and pour the juice from the tofu into the oats. It's really fast. And my dish is your dish that's the easiest one. Just whatever you're having, share it. That's an easy way to cook for them too. When you make the transition, do check with your vet. I would not tell you to do anything that you would not do with your vet's approval. However, know that most vets are not trained in this. And the vast majority of vets will probably say don't do it unless they're very holistic oriented. There are a lot of very good holistic vets around who do understand about feeding this way. There are even some who recommend it for certain animals with certain health problems. So find yourself a holistic vet and check with them if you're unsure. Know that some foods may pass through and digested at first. We talked about what to do with that. Puree, cook them a little bit, add enzymes, probiotics if you need to. But it's a good idea to make changes gradually, but I also think it's really good to get unhealthy foods out of their diet as quickly as you can. And most animals do so well on this food that they don't have a problem making the adjustment. If you think that they might, go ahead and make this transition slowly and gradually. But I think you'd be surprised to see how well they adapt. And then once you do it, watch for signs. If you think their energy is too high or too low, think about adjusting the protein levels. I used to give Tila 3 eggs in the morning. She had to run and run and run and run and run. There's a difference between I want to go and run out and play because I feel so terrific, and I got to run because I just can't stand still anymore. And that's not healthy for anybody. So I cut her down from 3 eggs to 1 egg, and she's peaceful and happy and joyful and vibrant and so it's an individual thing, though. If they seem their energy is too low, maybe increase the protein levels. Coat is dry or dull, think about your fat supplement and how much you're giving. Maybe add a little bit more. We talked about digestion, how to deal with that. Very likely, though, you're going to see really good energy. You're going to see a nice glossy coat. You're going to see this flaky skin go away. You're going to see a really calm, peaceful companion. And if that's the case, just keep doing what you're doing and feel really good about that. Oh, she thinks it's a really good idea. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. I wish we had a lot more time for questions. We don't, but I'm going to be down at a table next. I'm going to be down at a table next to the grab and grow section. So if you have questions, come on down. We can answer those. My book has all this information in it, lots and lots about nutrition and diet and homeopathy, herbs, bodywork, Chinese medicine. It's in the store, and I'll have some down at the table. It's in the store all weekend, and this is Listen to the Silence, and this is a whole different thing about sitting out in the hills and getting inspired. But thanks so much for coming, for all of you. Okay. Yes, and I'll have them down at the table right now.